Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live.
The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. You only win a Super Bowl 2 times every 5 years, right?
Oh!
The warm-up act is over. Let's bring in Melissa Etheridge, massive Chiefs fan. Melissa,
Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score!
and we'll see you next week. But until then, as always, go Chiefs. Welcome into the Arrowhead Addict podcast. It is
Good. How are you? Yeah, it's not great. I remember that. I feel like Maisie was like always sick, like for like a year, like just constantly something. Genevieve's more of a tank. Doesn't get also though. To be fair, like Maisie was in daycare with like 20 kids, and Genevieve's in daycare with like 3.
Yeah.
So that probably plays a pretty big factor into all that stuff too.
I'm hearing bad news, which is that they can't hear me.
That's not good.
It's not
That's
good.
not good. All right, so I'm carrying this thing.
I'm fixing out. Okay. Sorry for the issue, everybody. But
You missed nothing.
You missed nothing. We're talking about how kids get you sick all the time and they're disgusting and they roll around in the dirt and then you pay for it. I will say though, I really underestimated. Like I knew this was going to be a thing. Like parents had told me they get sick all the time early on, and I was like, I thought I was prepared for it. I didn't realize it was going to be like all the time, like constantly. So that's been rough, but we've been it's made me a little bit less of a baby about being sick. So I guess that's a plus because you've no choice.
Yeah, well, that is true. Look, it's a miracle as an adult with a child if you're not sick like 5 times a year minimum. It's just it's just the territory of having a young child.
Yeah. Let's get into. Oh no, I'm seeing that there's a TMZ article about Xavier Worthy.
Yeah, I'm reading it right now. It's not good.
Not good.
Not even close to good. No.
Thought we were in the clear here.
I don't know whether or not in terms of like suspension worthy. Look, I mean, TMZ basically, Chief Xavier Worthy fiance claims he choke slammed her. ... I felt like I was going to die. Article reads in part: Xavier Worthy's fiance made some shocking claims in her application for a protective order against the NFL star this week, including allegations he choked and beat her on several different occasions. TMZ Sports just obtained the court filing, and in it, Tia Jones, who got engaged to Worthy in July 2024. Says the Kansas City Chiefs wideout violently put his hands on her at least 5 different times in the last year. She stated in the documents, the first incident took place in October 2024 after the two had quarreled over comments Worthy's mother had made to her. She alleged Xavier got so upset during the tiff, he, quote, pushed me to the ground with 2 hands, end quote. She stated he apologized shortly after. Several weeks later, around Christmas time, Jones claimed in the protective order application that Worthy picked her up, slammed her on the bed, and began choking her after, quote, we're arguing over him cheating, end quote. Quote, he knew about my history of abuse in past relationships. She said, so, quote, I was horrified that he would do that. I told him to never do that again, end quote. She, though, states that only angered Worthy further, alleging he then charged at her and threw her on the ground. She said she sustained a bloody and swollen toe in the altercation and ultimately left his apartment. She said when she came back later, they, quote, ended up talking and he apologized, end quote. But she wrote in the docs it wasn't long before he attacked her again. She stated the two were in a dispute in a closet of one. I think they have a typo in there. She stated the two were in a dispute in a closet of one of his Kansas City residents' rooms when he, quote, got tired of what I had to say, grabbed my throat with his left hand and squeezed it, shook me, and threw my head back. My head jerked forward, and I hit my face on the closet door, chipping my bottom tooth. It hurt really bad, end quote. She wrote in the docs the next incident took place around Valentine's Day after the two had got into another dispute over his alleged infidelity and his subsequent asking of her to leave the house. He got very upset with me, she wrote, grabbed my throat with two hands and squeezed, shook me, and pushed me away. He then walked away, and I just cried. Jones wrote the last and most recent physical altercation took place on March 7th, which ultimately led to his arrest later that day. This was the absolute most violent he has ever been, she said. Jones, a track and field athlete, stated the issues began the morning when Xavier got, quote, upset with me because I did not give him and his dog enough attention the night before after my long day of practice, end quote. She said Worthy and her exchanged words, and after she called him, quote, a bitch, he flipped out. Jones says Worthy picked her up and slammed her body against the home's walls, all while yelling, get out, get the F out. She says she was only able to break free after pulling his hair. She says Xavier then followed her and put his hands on her further. He grabbed me by the throat, lifted me off the ground, and slams me on the floor, she said. Jones claims she hit her head so hard during the incident it caused her vision to go blurry. She alleged Worthy eventually calmed down, but she had to cancel her practice because her leg hurt so bad that I was limping on it. She says Worthy was adamant about her moving out in the hours that ensued, yet when she thought they were going to discuss future living arrangements, he allegedly snapped again. She wrote in the documents, Worthy threw his keys at her but missed. Before I could turn around, she stated, Xavier hit me upside my head and pushed me to the ground. I mean, this is a long article that keeps going and going and going. Lastly,
a lot of detail.
What?
A lot of detail.
Yeah. It's pretty brutal. Worthy then allegedly took Jones's phone, iPad, and computer and got even more violent. Quote, he follows me to the game room and starts tossing me around, choking me and slamming me. He carries me to the garage door. I remember holding onto the wall while he was pulling me, making both my feet come off the ground. He lets one of my hands go to open the garage, and then he puts both of his hands around my neck from behind, and he chokes my neck so tight I was making choking sounds. I felt like I was going to die, she added. Seconds later, she said Worthy, quote, grabbed the part of my throat that I swallow with, like he was trying to rip it out. He then allegedly threw her to the ground and, quote, put his right knee on my throat. I could not breathe. It was on there for more than 10 seconds, end quote. She said when the altercation finally ended, Worthy, quote, locked me out and let my dog come out. I waited in the car for the police to come, end quote. Cops did eventually arrive on the scene and arrested Worthy. He was booked on one charge of assaulting a family household member while impeding breath circulation, but on Sunday, the district's attorney's office stated it was declining the case following a further investigation into the matter. Worthy's attorney said in a statement to TMZ Sports on Thursday, the footballer, quote, denies each of the allegations, end quote, that were made in the filing. Mr. Worthy maintains his innocence, Chip Lewis and Sam Bassett said, and stands by the conclusions of the district attorney after law enforcement's review of Mrs. Jones' unfounded allegations. A Williamson County judge did grant the temporary order against Worthy on Wednesday. The Chiefs, meanwhile, have said they're aware of the situation and are still gathering information. There you go.
That's it. Thanks for reading that for everybody, Verderame. It came out like just I saw the note from her lawyer on Twitter right before we went on. Nothing consequential that you wouldn't have expected from the lawyer. Just she maintains this is what happened and no details. Now you have this. And look, I see some people in the we have no idea. None of us have any idea. If you're in there and you're saying she's doing it for money, you have no idea what happened. We have no details. Here's what we know. We know that they arrested him. They investigated it that night. They declined the press charges. We don't know why they declined the press charges. We don't know that he's innocent. We don't know that she isn't making it up. We just don't know. So for anybody, pro Worthy or pro the alleged victim, saying that they know exactly what's going on here. Just shut up. Just stop talking. You don't know. It's just insane the way people. It's what a horrible thing to think that somebody would make that up. I have no idea though. None of us were there. So, but this is obviously bad, and we just have to kind of sit back and let it play out. And I'm just sad about it. Like, it's just an awful article, and it's sad either way, whether it happened or whether it didn't happen.
I don't know. As you said, I wasn't there. So I don't know. I don't know if he's telling the truth, if she's telling the truth. I'm not saying what I'm about to say applies here, but in a lot of cases it's somewhere in the middle, because God knows in life, a lot of times if you have one person on one side of things and one person on the other. That being said, listen, here's the hard thing about this. And I'm not a lawyer by any means in any facility. This stuff is very hard to prove, especially when it is from months ago or weeks, because things heal. And that's where, if you're the accuser in any situation like this, the burden of proof, ultimately, the way our American justice system is set up, it falls on you to be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt these things happen. The problem with that is, especially with domestic violence, a lot of times it's just you and the other person that are in the house, that are in the home. Yeah. So it's very, very hard to prove. That being said, look, I will tell you straight up, if any of this stuff is proven to have happened, they should cut him. And they won't. They won't, because it's the NFL and he's productive and he's a cheap player who's got a lot of talent. I'd be shocked if they cut him. But if any of that's true, any of it, they should cut him on the spot.
Yeah. And look, everybody and everybody that gets outraged about this kind of stuff when these guys don't get cut, I don't blame you for being outraged about it, but it's not. Stop looking to NFL teams to be your moral, your moral compass. It ain't gonna happen. There's too much money on the line. They don't care. It's just the way it is. That the whole league.
Look, so I've said this forever, and it's always been true and it'll always be true. The more talent you have, the more leeway you're going to get. If this TMZ story came out about a guy who was their third string corner, he'd been cut today. Like, that's just the truth. If what happened with Rashee Rice happened with another player of far less talent, he gone. They wouldn't even have waited for the details to come out. Okay. Yeah. They were very clear when Kareem Hunt years ago was released from the team back in 2018. He was not released because of what he did. He was released because he lied to Clark Hunt about it. They made that brazenly clear in their statement afterward. Yeah. I just think sometimes, we get to, and you see some of like the commentary, and not just here, but in general, like first of all, this goes way beyond football, like way, way, way beyond. I don't care whether Xavier Worthy is a star player on your team or he's collecting garbage. Like, if any of those accusations are true, they're heinous. Okay, they're heinous. The accusations are heinous in general, but like if any of it's true, then it's a heinous act. Secondly, what pisses me off when fans do this whole like, she wants money. First of all, you have no clue. Second of all, would you be saying that same thing if the guy played for the Raiders? No, you wouldn't be. The only reason you're doing that is because he's on your team and you don't want him to be in trouble. And that's bullshit. That is straight up, flat out bullshit. If you're going to act a certain way for a player on your team, then you should have that same exact reaction to the guy on another team. And if you don't, then your priorities are screwed up. Like, Xavier Worthy is a very good football player. And I hope from a life standpoint that he did not do what he's accused of. But that has nothing to do with the fact that he plays for a team that I grew up rooting for. Like, that comes from a human being perspective. I mean, that's it. Like, my hope is that he didn't box his fiance around. That's my hope. Not because, he'll avoid a suspension. Like, because I hope somebody wasn't boxed around their house. Like, that's the reason.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's a horrible situation. Obviously, this TMZ article, if you just think about how things played out, and then we'll move on from this because again, there's no reason for us to
talk about.
speculate.
We don't know.
Yeah, but this is how these things go, right? The narrative when it happened was, okay, what's going on here? He got arrested. This sounds bad. Then he got let go, and they're not pressing charges. So then everybody just assumed that what that means is it didn't happen. Somebody made it up. They said they talked to other witnesses. That may well be the case. We don't know. But what you're seeing now is this isn't going away. A bunch of people assumed because he got let go and charges weren't pressed that she made it up. And so this is her side of the story. And she has a right to tell her side of the story. And if she's telling the truth, I hope he gets tossed in jail. And if she's lying, I hope she gets tossed in jail.
Because then you're screwing somebody's life up for no reason.
You're screwing somebody's life up for no reason, and you're making it worse for real victims of awful domestic violence.
Because then they're not as believed. And
because you got a bunch of knuckleheads sitting around saying every time a woman says something, they're making it up. So it's bad for everybody. And let's just hope that there's some way to get to the truth of what happened, and then whichever person is on the wrong side here gets punished accordingly. All right,
I will just really, really quick, and then I'm with you 1,000% move on. The one thing that, and I admit, this is more of an open question for me because I don't know. I have no legal expertise in the slightest. What was interesting is, so it was Saturday that the initial story came out that there was a mugshot of him and he was in a Williamson County jail and so on and so forth. Within hours, it came out that he had been released out of custody, that there were no charges, that the district's attorney felt like there was no, essentially, no, I'm paraphrasing, but no reason to prosecute the case, that they didn't have enough evidence. What makes it, so you juxtapose it against all this, like, there's a disconnect for me mentally. Then why, if what she's alleging, because the last part of that allegation, obviously it was over a long period of time, her allegations, but the last allegation came within that time where the police showed up. It makes me wonder, and I'm not, to be very clear, I'm not saying I don't believe her. I don't know. I have no idea what happened, but at that point, why did the DA decline to pursue it? I don't, and that's the question I have. It's an honest, legitimate. Maybe there's a legalese reason that I'm just completely unaware of. Maybe there wasn't any. I don't know. Maybe there were witnesses. I don't know.
There was something in there about a third party witness, I believe.
Okay, because it's just, again, I'm not saying I don't believe her. I'm just she might be telling 100% truth. It's weird to me, as from a non-legal background person, like, then why not pursue some charges there? But maybe there's a reason, and maybe she's 100% on the ball and telling all the truth, and it's just, there's a reason why the charges weren't pursued. Anyway, regardless, it's ugly and it's awful, and I hope, for the sake of the human beings involved, that she was not abused relentlessly. And if she was, and it ever comes to light that any of that's true, they should cut him before he can blink.
Yep. Amen. Well, more to come on that. We'll keep you abreast of anything we do here that is actual news and is factual, and we'll try to stay as far away from the speculative area of these types of things as we possibly can. And you should too. On Twitter, in this chat, there's no reason to speculate on this until there's actual facts. Either way. Okay.
1,000%.
All right, Verderame, let's talk about Chiefs free agency. Obviously, this situation may potentially impact some of the moves or the Chiefs' thinking. I'm sure they're investigating it as well. But let's get into what has happened so far. You and I haven't talked since all the news has come down. So let's start off with the biggest free agent signing that the Chiefs made, which is that of one Travis Kelce. Not really a free agent signing, but kind of was. Didn't know if he was going to be back. He's going to be back. And I wanted to start, before we get into anything else, with getting your opinion on his return. And I'm going to caveat that by saying what I've been saying on the show the last few weeks is, don't be surprised if he comes back and gets 1,000 yards for this team. And I'm going to tell you why. And you can let me know if you agree.
Okay. I'll hear you. But wow, I did not expect you to say that. Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys, if you look in the history of like older, great players, where if you go back and you just look at their statistics, you'll see them start to decline. They'll have a couple of down years and you could, oh God, they're starting to decline. And all of a sudden, like they'll come back and they'll have like 1 or 2 more really good years. And then it's over. And I've seen that a lot. And my hypothesis with Kelce was that I think he's gonna, and this is before he alluded to getting in better shape and focusing on in the offseason, was that I wondered if some of these guys, they're great. And then they start to slip a little bit and they sit back and they're like, hold on, I got to reevaluate everything I'm doing here because what I used to do that worked for me doesn't work. I'm going to start playing a little bit of a different style. I'm going to start trying to beat guys with my speed and be, headier. I'm going to lose a few pounds, whatever. And then they were able to squeeze one more bit of juice out of that lime, if you will. And so I went on the record last week that after I heard Travis Kelce say, I'm going to work out really hard. That's my prediction, is that he's going to come back and he's not going to be what he was, but he'll be better than the guy we've seen the last couple of years. But I want your thoughts on the whole thing.
Look, so this year, what do you have? 800 and something, I believe.
Yeah, 94 catches, 4 touchdowns, 800 yards.
It wasn't like he was a complete bum or anything. He had 823 yards on 97 receptions. Yeah. So here's kind of ties into Xavier Worthy. Here's my thought on this. So let's assume that Xavier Worthy is there to start the year and they've got Hollywood back. Okay, we'll talk about it. And then Rashee Rice, I'm just also like, let's just live in a world where like everybody's on the field. Even if they don't all start the year there, whatever. They're on the field.
Yeah.
Those 3 guys. I am of the opinion that Kelce should be the number 3 option in that offense. Like, Rice should be the number 1 receiver on that team. Period. End of story. He's the best guy they have. Worthy, if he continues to develop the way the second half of the year went in the playoffs, I think is a number 2 receiver on the team and would be a number 1 receiver on some teams. Not a ton, but some. Kelce's better than Hollywood Brown, like even now. But for me, here's my concern, right? So if you look at Kelce the last, really, realistically, the last 10 years, but like he's always had more than 100 targets. In the last 7 years, so since Mahomes became the quarterback, his targets have been roughly, I'm just trying to do the math real quick. He's had 971 targets over the last 7 years. So you're talking about an average of 139 targets a year. I don't want him anywhere near 139 targets. He had 133 last season. I want his targets at 90. I think that would be the right, if he's there, he's obviously not going to get 1,000 yards if he's there, but I think their offense would be a lot better. I think that'd be indicative that he's a lot better. How you doing?
Good.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Maisie.
Hi.
You think Travis Kelce's going to have a good season next season? All right, good. That's good news.
All right.
How are you? Mom just came in. Go say hi to Mom. All right. Yeah. So, that to me, I almost feel like if he has 1,000 yards, that's a bad sign for the offense. It means they're just all right, gain of 4. I almost worry that would mean that they're just constantly feeding him the ball 6 yards in front of the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I think that definitely could be the case. One of the things I was thinking about though, with what he had last year, with 823 yards. Okay, that's getting to 1,000 yards with what he did last year. That's 2 more really good games, maybe 3. That's it, right? Then I think about, and I'm not saying he hasn't lost a step. He certainly has. But
wait, there's 6.
But also think about, if you're a defense last year, most of the season, who were you worried about?
Oh, him. No, 1,000.
Travis Kelce, right? So even the year before that, they didn't have anybody at receiver that scared anybody. He's the target. So when you combine losing a step with, you're the guy they're going to double team the bracket, you're the guy that they want to stop. They're not scared of the running backs. They're not scared of any of the other wide receivers. I actually think if those guys are all there next year, maybe he should get the targets that he should get because he's open or not. So if they try to take him away, great. Go off Xavier Worthy. Go off Rashee Rice.
Right.
But I think that having those guys on the field, they had nobody last year. With all due respect to Xavier Worthy, he was a non-factor until the end of the season.
Yeah.
Right. So how much of that, like even if you just had, like, just say you plopped Tyreek Hill on that team last year, does Travis Kelce go for over 1,000 yards? I bet he probably does. And how much of the conversation are we having about, like, has he slowed down too much? So that's what's behind my prognostication, is that I think they're not going to rely on him in the way that they have in years past. Maybe add more pieces to what they even already have via the draft or trade, whatever. And I think that if he comes in really great shape and really focused on having this great last season, washing that bad Super Bowl taste out of his mouth, he's got a shot to do it. If anybody can, it's him.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, that's certainly true. Listen, he's an all-time player. You could argue he's the best tight end of all time. I think, look, realistically speaking, I mean, he's obviously not who he was a couple of years ago, but I mean, who among us are? Okay, I get out of bed now and make sounds I didn't know were even possible 5 years ago. Not in a good way. No, look, I think if you're looking at what is an ideal offense for them next season, like, forget the line, just in terms of like their weaponry and moms, I think your ideal offense with them is that Rice is a guy capable of 100 yards in just about any game he plays in. That Worthy is a guy who is, assuming he's there for all 17 games, like, he's a guy who's like a threat for 1,000 yards. And then to me, if Kelce falls and he's like 800-yard guy, that's the offense. That's where you want it. That's the sweet spot of where you want to be. And then you mix in the Noah Grays of the world and the the other guys, the Hollywood Browns of the world. That's, to me, that is the ideal offense with, of course, the running back. I draft the running back like day 2, split time with Pacheco, and go with God.
Yeah, and that's, look, hey man, I'm fine with nobody having 1,000 yards if they're all, if they all got 800, 4 guys or something. So, well, I'm glad. Are you glad he's coming back for one more year? Do you think? I've talked to people who were like, I think he should have walked.
No, I mean, I think, look, there's going to come a day not that far off where Travis Kelce doesn't play football anymore, and you're going to miss watching Travis Kelce play football. Like, I will tell you, look, I've covered games. I've been fortunate enough at SI to be sent to a lot of games, including the Super Bowl and whatnot and all these things, right? And we've covered Super Bowls together. One of the coolest experiences I've ever had covering any game was the divisional game against Houston when he rumbled for 49 yards. Like, that place lost its mind when the only thing that would have made that cooler is if he had scored. That place would have absolutely just caved in on itself if he had scored on that play. I mean, it almost felt impossible that he was running that far. Like, it was like a scene out of like Little Giants, you're like, oh my God, he's still going. Like, it felt impossible. I remember writing, like, my whole column about the game was about him. And I wrote that, I wrote that, like, he was running like a parked bus, but he went for 49 yards. In fact, after the game, I asked Xavier Worthy, I was like, what about Travis and, what he does to the team, stuff like that. And he made the quip, like, young Trav would have scored. And so I went up to Travis Kelce and I asked him, like, hey, Xavier says young Trav would have scored. Is that true? And he's like, yeah. And then he kind of looked at me and he's like, well, how young is young Travis? And I was like, that's a pretty good point, I don't know. I don't think it's a bad thing. Look, he's still, I think we're so used to seeing him as like Travis Kelce, where like last year's version was like, oh my God, like what happened? He was still a Pro Bowler. I mean, and a deserved one, not one of these, like, he was like the 8th alternate and other than Brock Bowers. Yeah. Other than Brock Bowers, he's the best tight end in the AFC. Like, he still is. So yeah, do I want that guy on my team? Hell yeah, I want that guy on my team. Absolutely.
Yeah. Shout out to Swiss for the super chat. Bearing injury, 87 is getting 1K. My honest opinion, knowing it's the last dance, he'll go full foot loose. And then we had a super chat earlier from Slam and Sam, said the team has 11 needs, 8 picks, and 30 million in cap. Let's get into some of these actual free agents here. And let's talk about the left tackle situation. The Chiefs go and get a backup, Jalen Moore from San Francisco. Sort of depends on who you talk to. 49ers fans I've talked to said he sucks. He's not any good, and our line's not any good. Advanced metrics people, not too shabby when he was in there starting. Has almost a season's worth of starts-ish. over his career so far, but he's backing up one of the best left tackles ever out there in San Francisco.
Yes,
So
first ballot Hall of Famer.
And what's your take on this move? Do you like this better than the Chiefs maybe overpaying Dan from Pittsburgh? There wasn't a lot out there for the Chiefs to go and get here.
All right, so here's the situation. I am one of 4 national writers we have in Sports Illustrated. Albert Breer is one of them. You may or may not be aware that Albert Breer is pretty good at his job, and he's not exactly doing a free agent grades tracker. Okay, he has worked himself out of that. I have not worked myself out of that. Connor Orr and Gilberto Manzano, congratulations to both of their families, are both on paternity leave.
That's awesome.
They've welcomed children into the family. Yep, Connor's third daughter and beautiful little girl, and then Gilberto becoming a dad with his son. So
zone defense over at the Orr household.
Yes. So I have been left to play basically man on man with Jerry Rice, which is the free agency spigot of news.
Yeah.
And so I've been doing the grades tracker. And so the Chiefs, of course, signed Jalen Moore about 8 seconds into tampering. And so I gave it a C+, which to me is just like it's an average grade. Like, I don't really know. I don't know how good he's going to be. He started 12 games. Look, I've reached out to some people, in the league and around the signing and everything else. And the thought basically is, look, in those 12 games, he showed good athleticism, pretty good pass pro, good anchor, upside, essentially. I also, if you look at the contract, he's getting paid $21 million guaranteed. $15 million of that is this year. So it's only $6 million in the other year. So if they needed to cut him, like if he's awful, they can cut him and move on without a ton of dead cap money. I will also say the reason I brought all this background up is I gave it a C+ before I saw Dan Moore got 4 years and $82 million. I would have immediately given the Chiefs a B as a grade if I knew that Dan Moore was getting 4 years and $82 million. Dan Moore is not worth 4 years and $82 million in any world. And I'm not trying to crap on Dan Moore or the Titans or Mike Bergonzi, who comes over from the Chiefs, but let's call it what it is. The Steelers watched Dan Moore start for 3 years and like, you know what we need in the first round? Broderick Jones, because we've watched Dan Moore play football. Okay. And then Broderick Jones went over to the right side and Dan Moore stayed on the left side, and it remained a problem all year long. And then the Steelers were like, we're not even going to make an attempt to keep you. Thanks for the memories. And the Titans were like, awesome, $82 million.
Yeah.
If the Chiefs had given him a 4-year, $82 million, I would have lost my mind. I would absolutely been apoplectic. I gave it an F. I think it's one of 2 F grades I gave. The other one was Milton Williams, and Milton Williams was was not happy on Instagram. Let's put it that way. It's fine. It's fine. Let's just hope I don't run into him in an alley. He's bigger than me.
Yeah.
But in any event, look, I think the signing is fine. Like, nothing that they did at left tackle was going to make me go, oh my God, that's awesome. And nothing was going to make me go berserk as long as they didn't give some guy a huge overpay. They didn't give him a huge overpay. So this draft class, like I've talked to people in the league about this. This draft class is brutal at tackle. Brutal. Membo out of Mizzou is probably the best guy. Campbell at LSU, some people think he's the best guy. Some people see him as the second guy. He's got 32-inch arms. Like, most teams, the cutoff's like 33 and a half, 34. Like, it's just, I think the Chiefs basically looked at this draft class and were like, we are not drafting a tackle. So we've got to find somebody. I guess Jalen Moore at least gives you upside. Like, you don't know. You don't know what he's going to be. Whereas Dan Moore, like, I know what Dan Moore is. I know what Cam Robinson is. And I wouldn't have killed him if they'd signed Cam Robinson. I don't think he's great or anything, but I think he's whatever. He's a guy. He's fine. This at least has the upside of potentially being very good. May not be, but at least there's that upside where, like, these other guys, they're not going to be very good. You already know that.
Yeah, a lot of the guys in the draft, even some of the ones who might be pretty good that are tackles, may get moved to guard. I mean, that's just kind of what you're looking at in this class. I mean, maybe the Chiefs could consider trying to trade up, but then you're talking about where are you going to have to go to get a tackle that might be worth drafting that you think you can start. And if you're wrong, it's not a sure thing, like you're giving up all this extra. So I think they're going to just kind of let it play out and see what happens. Maybe there's a guy they like, and if it falls to them, we'll take him, but it's not good. And boy, I'll tell you what, though. Well, actually, before I say this, do you think that the Chiefs made the right decision by sending away Joe Thuney and keeping Trey Smith?
Look, if we're talking about it from the perspective of one or the other, yes, because one of them's 7 years younger. Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's let's be honest here. Is Trey Smith ever going to be as great as Joe Thuney? I don't know, but Trey Smith is really, really, really good. He's a Pro Bowler. He is 25 years old, turns 26 in June. He is the epitome of class and somebody you want in the room.
Great kid. Great kid.
And he's durable as hell. The guy's missed one game in 4 years. Like, you want that guy. And for the record, like, if you're like, well, yeah, but is he Joe Thuney? Joe Thuney's first 4 years, he was also excellent in New England. He had made a Pro Bowl. He was a second team All-Pro his fourth year in New England. He had never made a Pro Bowl. His career really blossomed in Kansas City, where he became a 3-time Pro Bowler, made 3 All-Pro teams, all the rest of it. Like, he was a very good player in New England. He became a great player with the Chiefs. Look, here's the problem that they ran into. Okay, if you're going to tag Smith and not extend him right away, and my understanding of that is it's going to be a market-setting deal. They fully expect to sign him, but I would expect that to come in like the spring or early summer. If you're going to tag him and not sign him right away, then you've got to clear up a lot of cap room, especially if you're going to make some of the moves that they were planning on making, like the Jalen Moore signing, like the Christian Fulton signing, Hollywood, guys like that. And so you can restructure Mahomes and Jones, and also they had to re-sign Bolton. You can restructure Mahomes and Jones. You're going to need some more money for breathing room, for other ancillary signings as time goes on. And I think they just looked at it, and they feel like Suamataia at this point is a better guard than a tackle. They were encouraged by his game week 18. They feel like he can play guard. And nobody's under the illusion he's going to be Joe Thuney at left guard. But he's a hell of a lot cheaper. And if he can just be good at guard, then that fixes a lot of problems. And you get a 4th-round pick for a 33-year-old guard who you were not going to extend because you're paying big money to other offensive linemen. So I get it. Do I love it? No. In a perfect world, they could have extended Smith right off the jump and kept Thuney for one more year. But I understand it. Like, I'm not killing the Chiefs for that. I get it. I understand why they did what they did.
And that's a legit draft pick they got for him as
it
well.
It's a top 125 pick, yeah.
So look, I hate that he's going. Is it the best move for this year? No, absolutely not. But is it the best move for the future? Yeah. I think, look, you might have to go through a little bit of a retool here if you're the Chiefs. Although with them, they said they managed to make it to the Super Bowl no matter what. So they'll probably go and win it. But like thinking about the future and saying, hey, we love Joe Thuney. He's, been an anchor for us. He's been incredible. He's 32. He's expensive. It's the last year of his contract. He could fall off a cliff at any time. This kid's 25. And he's played really good football for us. And maybe they agree that he has not hit his ceiling yet. It's kind of a no-brainer when you put it that way. If they were like, we're going to try to win the Super Bowl this year and this year only, then no, you keep Joe Thuney. But they're thinking about the next 10 years. And that's the way Brett Veach has to play it.
They are. And listen, I mean, I'll just straight up, like, I really think this team is going to be determined in terms of what their ceiling is and what they accomplish by the left side of that offensive line. I mean, we can sit here and talk, look, they got to add to the D line, and they will. That's fine. We could talk about the receivers and who's available. Look, from a football perspective, okay, even if Rice isn't there for a quarter of the year, Worthy, like, they'll survive it. Like, they have so much ability, like, they'll just figure it out. They care about who's there, later and onward. This entire season is about those two guys on the left side of the line. If those guys can block, if they're good, this team's going to be really, really good. And if they can't, and it's a swinging gate, like, they're probably going to lose in the playoffs because at some point you just can't overcome it. To me, and I know we're talking Chiefs here, okay, but this factors in because they're a rival of them. I was shocked Houston traded Laramie Tunsil. Just absolutely blown away that happened. I could not believe that was the case. I don't understand how you trade that guy. And then you bring in like Ed Ingram and Laken Tomlinson. You kidding me? Those two guys, I mean, I'm not trying to denigrate them, but they're two of the worst guards in football. Like, how do you justify that? That stuff I'll never understand.
Yeah, it's very strange. And you've got a young quarterback there in CJ Stroud. It's wacky. All right, let's move on to another free agent that the Chiefs re-signed and brought back, and that was Nick Bolton. This was another controversial one among Chiefs fans. I really felt like I'm on Twitter and people are acting like Nick Bolton's a replacement level linebacker, and they're really upset that they brought him back. But as we know, Spags called him the Patrick Mahomes of the defense.
Yes,
he's Spags' coach on the field. What was your take? Do you think that they made the right move bringing Bolton back?
So I have mixed feelings on the Bolton contract. So off the top, if Spags really thinks he's that instrumental to what they do, like, who in God's name might argue with Steve Spagnuolo? Okay, yeah. Like, right? Like, if my accountant does my taxes and says I'm getting $5,000 back, who am I to go in there and be like, actually, man, let me take a crack at that? Like that's how an IRS infraction happens. Okay,
yeah.
Like, I am not pretending to know more about defense than Steve Spagnuolo. Now, as far as the contract itself, 3 years, $45 million. I think that's about the top of the mark that I would have paid him. Patrick Queen got 3 years, and I believe, I'm not looking at it, it was $41 million a year ago. It's 41 to 42, like 14 a year. If you factor in inflation to the cap, they basically got the same contract. Okay, that's fine in terms of like what I think his value is. Now, could they have used that money in a better way? That's where I think you can make the argument. Like, were they better off giving him 3 and 45 or bringing back Justin Reed at 3 and 30? And then maybe spending that $15 million on like an edge rusher, right? Like, I think you can argue it. Again, I said I gave the Jalen Moore thing like a C+. It's the same deal with this. Like, it's kind of I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's so-so. All right, you. I love you. It's time for you to go. You are involved.
Yeah, you're getting clowned there. I'm right there with you, though. My reaction to it was, look, man, I trust Steve Spagnuolo. This guy, he's incredible in our run defense. They know what they want to do with the defense, what they do well, all of those things, and they trust Nick Bolton to be out there running the show. So that's good enough for me. Are they infallible? No, of course not. They make mistakes, right? We just talked about one in right. Kingsley Suamataia, right? As far as the tackle position goes, that didn't work out. Might have cost them a Super Bowl. So they're not infallible, but I would say that Steve Spagnuolo has definitely earned the right to say, I want this guy. And look, I think if he wanted Justin Reed, they'd have Justin Reed right now and not Nick Bolton. Nick Bolton's the guy he wanted.
I think, again, like, to me, it's not, if you're pro Nick Bolton, you're happy. You should be happy. It's 3 years, $45 million. He's here. If you're anti Nick Bolton, here's what I would say. Look, that's fine, but like, that contract's not killing them. Like, that's not like some contract. Like, if they had given him 4 and 72, like the Tremaine Edmonds contract, I'd have lost my mind. They didn't. They gave him 3 and 45. I thought that contract was in line with who Nick Bolton is as a football player. Look, I will say this, and it kind of goes back to the Kelce argument, although Kelce, of course, is a whole different level of player. I think sometimes because, you're a Chiefs fan, you look at it and go, well, he can't cover. He can't cover. You're right, and he can't cover. He's terrible in coverage. He should not be on the field on 3rd and long. It drives me nuts to have him out there. Spags wants him out there because you can communicate, but to me, like, so can Drew Tranquil get him off the field. The other side of that, though, is this. He's also very good at a lot of other things. Like, he's a very good blitzer. He's very good against the run. Like, he's good at those things. Like, that play, that 4th down play with the Bills, who did they blitz? Him. They brought him. There's a story that I want to say Spagnuolo talked about this to Peter Schrager. I believe it was on his podcast. Could be wrong, but I think it was. A couple of years back, or a year and change back. It was after they beat the Niners in the second Super Bowl they played them in. And, obviously everybody who's a Chiefs fan will remember, they made that big defensive stop coming out of the 2-minute warning that forced the Niners to kick instead of being able to bleed the clock pretty much all the way down. And so there's a moment there where Spagnuolo was talking about how coming out of that 2-minute warning, they're getting ready, they're trying to figure it out, and Spags is speaking into Bolton's helmet, and he's making the final call for that third down blitz with McDuffie off the slot. And he said Bolton just kind of didn't even really look at him, but just gave him a thumbs up. And Spags in the interview said, I knew it was the right call when Nick did that. If that call's good enough for Nick, it's good enough for me. Well, that's the biggest call of his life.
Yeah.
That is literally the biggest call Steve Spagnuolo has ever made in his career. And he was like, well, if Nick Bolton's good with it, I'm good with it. I mean, when I heard that call, I remember thinking they're going to re-sign that guy. That was a year before his contract came up. So, say whatever you want about him, but I think it's a fair contract for who he is.
Yeah. All right, let's talk offense. What about Hollywood Brown coming back, and what about DeAndre Hopkins leaving? You think that was the right call?
Yes. Love DeAndre Hopkins when he brought to the Chiefs, but he's in his mid-30s at this point. And I think you kind of got out of him what you could get out of him. I don't know that there's a whole lot left in the tank at this point. Listen, he's going to walk into Canton. Dude is a Hall of Fame receiver. Everybody in the locker room raved about who he is professionally and what he brings. But I think you have a hell of a lot better of a chance getting 750 yards out of Hollywood than you do out of DeAndre Hopkins next year.
Yeah.
I think that's probably that ship has sailed. So, and also too, look, these contracts get reported in ways that are just irresponsible. These people are, well, it's 1 year and $11 million. Then you get the whole it's up to $11 million. I think Nick Wright actually talked about this on his show yesterday. He's bang on. And then it's the actual contract gets released, and it's it's 1 year and $6.5 million. And yes, if Hollywood Brown is Justin Jefferson next year, then he gets $11 million. And it's I'm pretty sure the Chiefs would be happy to pay him $11 million if he's Justin Jefferson, right?
Yeah.
So they basically got him for 1 year, $6.5 million, a couple incentives. That's fine.
Yeah.
I think the question now at receiver is you've got Rice, you've got Worthy. Again, forget all this stuff away from the field just for a moment. From a talent, from a football perspective, those guys are absolutely 1 and 2s. That's a really good combination. They're young, they're cheap, they're really talented. And they complement each other really well because Rice is more of that big-bodied guy in the slot, Worthy's the burner on the outside. Now you got Hollywood. On the back end of the roster, say you keep 6 guys. You've got Remigio, who I actually like to see what he could do as a receiver. I think the kid's pretty talented, but he's a really good return man, if nothing else. And then you've got Sky Moore, who continues to live on in ways I'll never understand, right? If we all only had the job security of Sky Moore. So those are 5 of your 6 guys, assuming he's still there. Do they draft a guy? Do they go out and sign a Stephon Diggs? Would they do that? That to me is the question with them. Do they feel like that 4th receiver is more of a complementary piece, or do they feel like that guy's got to meaningfully contribute? And I'm curious to see which way they go on that one.
I think you got to look at it. I think they need to be really aggressive when it comes to the receiver position because you have huge unknowns hanging over your head right now.
Yes,
this whole Xavier Worthy thing, you have no idea how that's going to play out. It could be similar to the Rice situation, in that they're hey, we're going to let this play out in the courts, and you know how long it takes things to get settled in the justice system. It could not affect him at all, right? Rashee Rice, his bill's coming due, so he might be coming back, but something's going to happen. He's probably going to be disciplined. Could be 4 games, 6 games. Who knows? The legal process.
In the NFL, it's impossible to know. It could be 2 games. It could be 8. You have no idea.
Yeah. So you can't. If you're Brett Veach, I'd be sick to death at this point of going into seasons with we're waiting 4 games for this guy to come back. Patrick Mahomes has to be frustrated. So I'm looking at it at least week 1 right now. Hollywood Brown's your number 1 receiver, and if that's the case,
that's terrifying.
That's not good, right? Who else is on the roster? You got Nico Remigio, Sky Moore, Justin Ross is still managing to hang around. That's almost as remarkable as
he doesn't even count
as the Sky Moore thing. And you got Tyquan Thornton, Jason Brownlee. I mean, there's nobody on the roster. So I thought they should have been on DK Metcalf. They probably couldn't have afforded what he got. I would have loved that move. Because I think Mahomes needs a true number, not just a number 1, but an alpha receiver. And DK Metcalf, I think, is that. And maybe they could find one in the draft, but this is not widely regarded as a strong wide receiver draft. I'm concerned. I'm concerned because of the legal stuff. I think they'd be plenty good enough to win a Super Bowl if Xavier Worthy's there and he takes the next step, and Rashee Rice is back and he takes another step forward, and you got Hollywood Brown and you got Kelce. I think that's enough, but I think they need some weapons on offense.
No, I think, look, a lot of it does depend on just who's there, who's not. Right now, right this second, Super Bowl odds. Would you like to take I'm using ESPN Bet. This was updated as far as I can tell here 5 hours ago. Would you like to take a guess where the Chiefs rank in terms of Super Bowl odds?
I'd guess they'd be tied with the Eagles.
They are 6-1.
Yeah.
Yep. So the only teams that are under 10-1 are Philly, Kansas City, Baltimore, Buffalo, and Detroit.
Yeah. Yeah. They've got Patrick Mahomes. So, but yeah, it's concerning. I'll be really fascinated to see how Brett Veach approaches this draft. I think it's a really, really, really important draft for them. And he needs to have one of those drafts where he hits, because you really are in a transition. Last year, Travis Kelce, Chris Jones ain't getting any younger. Who's going to rush the passer? You got Mike Dana, George Karlaftis. Is George Karlaftis going to get any better than he is now? I don't know. Kind of feels like he's plateauing. He's still young,
like a 10 sack a year guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is great. Listen, you're fine with that, but that's probably what he is. Look, let's just play a game real quick. So if let's say the Chiefs don't add any more meaningful players to the roster before the draft. They're going to add some guy here and there. Going into the draft, you got pick 31, pick 63, pick 66. All things equal on the board, what 3 positions do they need to draft the
most? Tackle, defensive tackle, maybe edge.
Yeah, I'd go tackle, edge, and I would throw in a caveat. I'll tell you right now. Somebody mentioned this in the chat earlier. If Luther Burden is there at 31, the receiver out of Missouri, I would run the cart to the table and be like, "That's fine. We'll score 40 points a game.
Yeah,
we'll just never stop scoring points." I really like the one guy I really would go after here in free agency that I still think they could go for is Diggs. I still think Stephon Diggs is sensible for them. And for everybody who's like, oh, he's washed, he's not washed. Like, I watched the guy last year in Houston. I know he tore his ACL. I get it. He's 31 years old. Here are the guy's numbers. Okay, the last 7 years, 102 catches, 1,021 yards. 63 catches, 1,130 yards. Guy averaged 18 yards of reception. He had 9 touchdowns and 6 touchdowns those years. Goes to Buffalo. 127 catches, 1,535 yards, 8 touchdowns. Led the league in receptions and reception yardage. 103 catches, 1,225, 10 touchdowns. 108 catches, 1,429, 11 touchdowns. 107 catches, 1,183 yards, 8 touchdowns. And then last year, in 8 games, had 47 catches for 496 yards and 3 touchdowns. The guy was on pace for like 105 catches and 1,100 yards and 7 touchdowns. Like, I would take the guy on a heartbeat. You're telling me I get the guy on a 1-year contract? I would take him even if he had 800 yards. Like, can you have an offense? Now, maybe there's only the argument's like 1 ball to go around. Fine. I would make a sincere argument that if your offense was Worthy, Rice in the slot, Diggs on the outside, Hollywood Brown as your 4th receiver, Kelce and Gray, those 6 guys genuinely might have 4,400 yards receiving out of the 6 of them. If Kelce and Gray combined for 1,200, the other guys, let's say Rice, let's say between Rice and Worthy, it's 2,000, and the other 2 guys, it's 1,500. What does that add up to? What is it? It's 4,700 yards. Like, I understand at some point you're probably not getting all those yards out of all those guys because there's only one football. But if I'm Brett Veach, I'm looking at it going, look, I'm building an offense, and if everybody's healthy, we're just never being stopped. ever. We're just constantly scoring points. Bag just says the whole team's under 30.
We've got some breaking news here. Huge one. Chiefs have a new quarterback. Chiefs have signed Gardner Minshew, according to Adam Schefter. 1-year deal with Kansas City. He's the new backup for Patrick Mahomes. I actually don't hate that.
Not only do I not hate it, I actually really like it.
I like it better than the situation last year. I'll tell you that.
You know what? Look, I've never been a Minshew as a starter guy. I actually got to interview him at camp in Indianapolis the year they drafted Richardson. I found him fascinating, very insightful guy. Look, Gardner Minshew as a backup, you could make a real argument he's a top 3 backup in the NFL, easily, fairly easily.
He can play. He could play in the NFL.
Gardner Minshew's career numbers: completes 63.3% of his passes, 11,950 yards passing, 68 touchdowns, 34 picks. Listen, again, I'm not saying he's some great starter. He's not a great starter. That's why he signed to be a backup. But I honest to God, I'm trying to think of him off the top of my head because I don't want to make some stupid statement. He might be the best backup in football. Who? Is there somebody I'm just blatantly missing that you're that guy's better? This is not great podcast there. But
all those guys are starting.
Yeah, right.
Your Sam Darnold's.
He's in that same class. I feel as Tyrod Taylor, a guy who you're hey, if Mahomes rolls an ankle and is out 2 games, they can win those games.
Yeah,
Gardner Minshew can go out there and win those games depending on who they're playing. But no, I like it. I'm a big fan. I always have. Look, +2, just a great locker room guy. Everyone who's ever played with him loves him. So, yeah, I'm on board with that. I like Gardner Minshew. Yeah. That's a good signing.
Yeah, good signing for the Chiefs. All right.
I'm gonna try to find out how much it is.
Yeah, Christian Fulton. This is my favorite move that they've made in free agency so far. Talked to our guy Jason Reed over at Bolt Beat. Seems like the problem with Fulton is that he can play, but he's inconsistent. Makes some bonehead mistakes, gets burned sometimes. Started off the season hot last year. Did not have a good second half of the season. And the thing with cornerbacks, one, I think this is going to give the Chiefs the opportunity to put Trent McDuffie back in the slot where I think he belongs. Yes. And this, I think, remember Charvarius Ward in Kansas City? He was a good player. He wasn't great. And then he goes to San Francisco and really blossoms in their system. Systems matter, right? Systems matter. Coaching matters, all those things. So, there's no telling what his ceiling could be coming to Kansas City. He's talented. He's had good spurts of play, and he's made some mistakes. If the Chiefs can get him coached up, if the scheme is a better fit, the way the Chiefs play defense for him, this could be a really, really underrated signing for the Chiefs.
Of all the moves they've made this offseason, it's my favorite move. Other than if you want to include tagging Trey Smith, because I thought they needed to keep Trey Smith. But in terms of adding outside talent, it's a very, very quality pickup. Listen, so by the way, my understanding of this Minshew deal is it is a 1-year deal. It's just been reported out. But because Vegas cut Minshew, it essentially the contract offsets with Las Vegas. So Las Vegas basically paying for Gardner Minshew, and then there's some incentives. So
nice. So it's nice cheap contract for us because they're still paying him some guaranteed money.
Yeah, because the Raiders cut him. He had 1 year left in his contract.
Yeah.
So the Raiders, I'm going to get back to that question in a second. The Raiders, when they cut him, see here if I can pull it up real quick. So they gave him $2 and $25 last offseason, $15 million guaranteed. And so let's see, what was this? So the Raiders are eating $7.66 million in cap against the number this year. So yeah, so the Chiefs essentially, the source I spoke to didn't give the exact number, but essentially my understanding of it is it's pretty much one of these vet minimum deals with incentives. It feels like, because if it offsets with Vegas, that would be what we're driving at here. It's essentially it's kind of like Russell Wilson last year when he signed with the Steelers. They paid him the vet minimum because the Broncos were paying his contract.
Yeah.
So that's I believe that's what we're looking at here. So,
Gardner Minshew is he's kind of the he's kind of like the hippie Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yes.
Right? Like he's going to play by the time he's done, he's going to play for 15 franchises. 9 of them will decide at some point that they think he could be their starter, and that'll be that.
Yes. No, listen, it's interesting. It's okay. Fair enough. And I'm sorry, I lost.
We're talking about Christian Fulton.
Christian Fulton, yeah. Look, the thing I like about Christian Fulton is he fits the defense. Like every defense plays a little differently. The Chiefs obviously play a lot of man coverage. They play a lot of press on the outside. Christian Fulton, he's built a lot. I've used this comparison a few times since they signed him. He's a lot like Rashad Breeland. Same type of size, 6 foot, 200-pound guy. He loves to play press. He's physical. He's a contested guy. He likes a contested catch. Like he can get up there and play the ball. He's good at that. Like that's, in my opinion, what makes him a very good fit for this defense. Also, in speaking to people around the team, listen, one of the big reasons they signed him, and you mentioned this, it gives them versatility with McDuffie. They're not just constantly stuck putting McDuffie outside and putting Connor in the slot. Like they now have the versatility. My guess would be that when they're in base, which is probably a quarter of the game, the 30% of the game, McDuffie's obviously going to be the one corner. And then Watson and or Fulton, they may even switch off a little bit, depending maybe on the matchup, hot hand, be the other guy. In the nickel, McDuffie now slides back inside because Fulton does not play in the nickel at all. He's an outside corner all day long, as is Jalen Watson. I love the move. Look, I've always been a Christian Fulton guy dating back to his time at LSU. His problem in Tennessee, sometimes he got hurt a little bit. I thought for the Chargers last year, he was good. But I think in this system, because of the press man aspect of it, I think it'd be really good. And I actually think it's a really good signing by the Chiefs.
Yeah, it's gonna help out. Had some depth issues at cornerback last year. Maybe seeing a little bit less of some of those guys who were struggling a little bit last year. Najee Johnson, along those lines. Okay, real quick, Elijah Mitchell, flyer for you? Did they give him too much?
Yes. No, I don't think they gave him too much. No, it's just a flyer. I mean, look, it's going to be one of these things where, he's got to go to camp, be healthy. If he's healthy and he looks good, he'll make the team. Or if he doesn't and he's not that healthy, he's Irv Smith Jr. Part 2. And they just, look, he's got a lot of talent. The guy's averaged 4.6 yards per carry in his career, but like he missed all of last year with a hamstring injury. He's hurt a lot. So no, I think this is one of these deals. Hey, look, man, you bring him in, you kick tires. If he works out and you get lightning in a bottle, that's great. Otherwise, fine.
Yeah. All right. So it was last question for you. We're heading into the draft. Do you see any more big splashes from the Chiefs coming, or is this sort of it? Maybe they extend Trey Smith and free up some cap space, but like anything crazy, like a trade for a guy that some kind of move that's going to get people really excited, or is it, hey, this is pretty much it. We'll sign a few bargain basement guys, maybe to shore up our depth, and then we're going to head into the draft and see who's left after that.
I think it's probably the latter. I just think most guys are gone at this point that are meaningful impact players. I think the Chiefs pretty much going to the draft now. Maybe there's like an Amena who comes back or something like that, or they bring in like a one-year edge guy. But I would think for the most part, they're probably done spending meaningful money. And now it's about getting ready for the draft, filling out the back part of that roster, stuff like that, kind of housekeeping stuff.
Yeah. Kind of crazy now that Pete Carroll is with the Raiders.
Yes, it is.
The AFC West, I feel like all these guys are coming to the AFC West to like test themselves. It's like hard because if I was a coach, if I had my pick, if I could go more than one place, I would try to stay away from the AFC completely because I wouldn't want to deal with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. These guys, Harbaugh, Pete Carroll, Sean Payton, they're coming to the AFC West. I got to give them credit, man. They're going right at it.
Talks.
Yeah, that sure does. And there's only a few of these jobs. All right, before we get out of here, we have a little tradition we like to do here. Actually, first I got one review to read, because if you guys leave us a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts, you leave us a review on Spotify, written reviews on Apple, we'll read them on the show. And this one from MJ said, best Chiefs pod out there. Love all the boys who make this pod the best one out there. Extremely fair and well thought out takes while also maintaining their fandom. Also, Sterling is a beast and needs to be on ESPN. Well, I think we found Sterling's burner.
Wow.
Sterling, thank you for leaving us the review. before we get out of here, Verderame, Patty's power rankings. I thought we had to get back to food here. And one thing I don't think we've ever done on the show, we've never ranked our favorite chain pizza joints. So like Domino's, Pizza Hut, those kinds of things. I thought this would be fun. I'll give you a minute to think. I'm going to kick us off. My number 3 is Domino's. A lot of people really like Domino's. I think they'd be the top on a lot of lists. Just good, okay for me as far as chains go. I think Little Caesars is complete cardboard garbage. But yeah, I'll take a Domino's. Domino's Pizza I went to Westminster College in Pennsylvania, and back in the day before everybody had smartphones and all that stuff, they used to pull up outside the guy's dormitory, and they had a special, the local Domino's called Westminster Tuesdays, 2 for Tuesdays, and you get 2 medium pizzas for like $8 or something like that. Man, my ass was out there waiting for them to pull up every Tuesday.
Yeah, Domino's is quality. Man, top 3. So I do enjoy Domino's. I can't knock it. I'm trying to if like Papa John's is not going to make the list. I'm trying to think. I think I got to go with I think I got to go with the Hut.
The Hut? Okay, number 3, the Hut.
Yeah, the downside of Pizza Hut, I feel like maybe this is when I was a kid, but like basically you were guaranteed to burn your mouth right off of like the roof of your mouth is guaranteed to be Chernobyl. But Pizza Hut's still there for you when you need them. So I'm gonna go 3 Pizza Hut. It's still a quality enough pizza that I'm not ashamed to order it.
Okay. All right. I respect that. I'm going to have more to say on Pizza Hut later. Spoiler alert. Number 2 for me, this is going to be controversial. I like Papa John's. I like the pizza is the pizza is fine for me, but the reason they're on number 2 on my list is because they have the best cheese sticks in my opinion. Their cheese sticks and their garlic sauce. I would order just 2 boxes of cheese sticks and house them in high school with that garlic sauce that they have, which is people started releasing that. Nobody's is as good as Papa John's. And I think their pizza's fine. I like their sauce. So yeah, Papa John's number 2 for me.
I'm going to go off the board with this because this is like a chain pizza. It's not really like a box. How do you feel about DiGiorno at number 2?
Going frozen pizza.
Yeah.
Okay.
DiGiorno's underrated.
Okay. It's
good
not
pizza.
Delivery. It's DiGiorno.
No, it's not delivery. It's not. Fuck delivery. I got
a whole separate ranking of frozen pizzas.
I'm tossing it in there because I feel like if I go out and get a pizza, DiGiorno's at least in the conversation. So
yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go number 2. I'll go off the board and we'll see which number 2 picked by one of us is more disgusting to the audience.
Yeah. All right, number 1 for me. I worked there in high school. I think their pizza's fantastic, and it's Pizza Hut. I literally know how the sausage is made. I made the pizzas, the dough. It's all real. Like people like to hate on chain pizza, because they're like, oh, it's not. You could throw Pizza Hut pizza in some fancy like storefront, and then have an Instagram influencer go there and say it's the best pizza in Chicago, and people would be lined up and they'd be like, "Oh my god, it's so good! I love this Pizza Hut." It's Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut. They make it with regular dough, fresh ingredients. It's good. I think it's good pizza. Bro, I love their crust. And back in the day, man, going to the sit down Pizza Huts with the checker tablecloths, the red cups, and the all you can eat lunch buffet. I'll tell you what, man. I think I single-handedly am the reason they got rid of the all-you-can-eat lunch buffet, because they were like, "This Niles, Ohio, man. Our store there is losing way too much money on the lunch buffet." I
was talking to a guy that I was playing pickleball with the other day who grew up, went to school at Lane Tech in Chicago, which is a high school there, which was like a couple blocks from where I lived back in the day, and he was telling me how there was like this Chinese food place that had an all-you-can-eat buffet for like $5. And he's like, the football team would go there after every single practice and just house them. And he's like, we put him out of business.
Yeah, that's it.
He's like, we literally put him out of business.
Yeah.
So number one for me, I'm going Domino's. I was thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? I do like Domino's. And I was thinking about, I'm like, actually, I really like Domino's. I feel like Domino's. How can I word this professionally? I feel like Domino's is there for you at 2:30 in the morning on a Saturday when you're like 25 years old. You know?
Yep.
Like you're just like, oh my God, I know tomorrow's going to be rough. But you know what? I can eat an entire Domino's pizza right now, and things are going to be all right. And then you wake up next morning and there's just that like squared off box on the nightstand. Like, oh, what have I done? The dog's like licking the carton clean. There's some of the cheesy bread remnants. I'm going number one, Domino's. I've always liked it. We had one near us in college. Domino's to me, like, kind of oddly underrated now.
Yeah, I have one funny story before we go. When I worked at Pizza Hut, I was in high school, and I had this guy. He was the youngest manager at the time in Pizza Hut history. His name was Kenny. He was, he's probably a loser, and I thought he was cool. But so he hatched this plan one day where he was like to me and this guy, Big Dave. He said, "Hey, if we work on Thanksgiving or any other holiday like that, we get paid time and a half." And I was like, "Yeah, but we're closed on Thanksgiving." And he's like, "Yeah, but Veronica, she was our manager." He was like, "Veronica was talking about how the store was really dirty and needed to be cleaned." And this is so he's like,
he just went in there, cleaned it on Thanksgiving.
So he goes, "Hey, Veronica, Big Dave and Patrick and I are thinking about coming in. We work on Wednesday before Thanksgiving. We were thinking about coming in on Thanksgiving and giving the store a deep clean." And she was like, "I don't know. You get paid time and a half. Let me think about it." So I don't hear anything about it. Wednesday before Thanksgiving comes, and me and Kenny and Big Dave were obsessed with the NBA Jams arcade machine in the lobby.
Yeah.
And we were having a contest, and so what we would always play that on our breaks. So the Wednesday before, we're closing, the three of us, and Kenny's like, "Hey, we're gonna come in tomorrow," and we were like, "Oh yeah," and he's like, "Yeah, just don't even bother cleaning up. Like, let's just go because we're gonna be in here tomorrow." So we're like, "Oh, all right." So me and Big Dave, we show up on Thanksgiving. The three of us play NBA Jams for 8 hours, and then we're like, "Oh shit, we gotta clean up from last night." So we clean up from last night. No deep clean to be had, and we leave. Next, a week later, I get my paycheck. Veronica comes in. She's like, "Y'all came in on." She's like, "I didn't tell you to come in on Thanksgiving." And Kenny's like, "Oh, I thought you said that you wanted us to." And he's like, "We're here for 8 hours." And she's like looking around the Pizza Hut. She's like, "It don't look any cleaner. They're probably gonna come for me now."
I was gonna say you're gonna get served.
Yeah, they're gonna get that back, but with interest. That extra $15 I made on time and a half. So it was a good Thanksgiving. I won the NBA Jam tournament, got paid time and a half, and didn't have to close the night before. So
that's great.
That's
great.
All right, everybody, we're going to get out of here. Keep your eyes on arrowheadaddict.com and, of course, Matt's work over on sportsillustrated.com. You got anything special coming down the pike here as we're heading into the draft?
No, I've got a Bengals column coming up, I think, next week. More free agency reaction. Got some draft stuff coming, working on trying to get a feature or two going. And those are in the works. We'll see how that plays out. And then, other than that, you can always, of course, find me here. Find me on my Patreon podcast, the Matt Verderame Show, aptly named. That's it.
Are you going to the draft? Are you going to the draft? Are you going to be in Green Bay?
I could. I'm sure Asai would send me. Probably not. Like, I feel like the draft is kind of like not worth the squeeze of going.
It's not.
You just stand there and you interview. "Hey, man, how do you feel about going to Minnesota?" "I feel good." It's okay, great. Thanks. Hey, Bob, how do you feel about going to Arizona?" "I feel really good about it." Like, I want one time for some guy to say, I can't believe this. Can I go back to college, please? Not going to happen.
Yeah. If they did a radio row type thing like they're starting to do at the combine now,
it'd make it a little more worth it.
Yeah, I think so. But
otherwise, it's a disaster.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next week with our regular slate of shows. Thank you to Matt Verderame. Thank you to producer Richard for getting us up and running. We'll see you guys next week. But until then, as always, go Chiefs.